Welcome everyone to another episode of the Powerhouse Podcast. I am super excited because I have another powerhouse leader to introduce to you today. She is going to join me in the ring. We are going to go a few rounds. And as you know, this is our opportunity to truly redefine leadership, to disrupt the current definition of leadership and really get into a deep and meaningful place to have courageous, connected conversations about what it means to be a leader today, what we're doing to create those courageous moments. And as always, this is just going to go where it needs to go. So with that, before I give you the formal introduction, let me say hello and welcome my dear friend and the amazing powerhouse, Lisa Dad. Lisa,
hello.
welcome.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Candy. So excited to be here today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. And I got to tell you, Lisa and I love to play, so we're going to have a lot of fun. I love that she already got in the mood and put up the disc and was ready to start swinging, right? So let me tell you a little bit about this powerhouse. I adore her. She is definitely a sister from another mister and is just one of my peeps that, you know, is in my inner circle, and so excited to share her with you today. So Lisa is a career and lifestyle strategist, experiential learning facilitator, transformational speaker, and author of Finding Fabulous, Paving the Path Between Paycheck and Passion. Just awesome. After obtaining a master's degree in sports medicine, Lisa entered the corporate world of healthcare, where she spent 15 years in sales, marketing, and management roles. We have a lot in common. 5 years ago, like I did, she retired from the corporate life to find more meaning, purpose, and fun. She shared her story in a TedX talk titled "The Two Most Liberating Words You'll Ever Say," blurring the lines between work and play, and you will find she has a lot of fun and a lot of play. Lisa uses fun, unique, experiential learning principles to help individuals discover new possibilities and redefine success on their own terms. Lisa finds her own version of fabulous traveling all over the world. She has definitely got a full passport, embracing a play mindset, and leverages those skills and experiences in her volunteer work as chairman of the board of a nonprofit youth leadership organization, All It Takes. And I could go on for hours about how fabulous Lisa is. But again, I just want to welcome her to the show, and I'm so honored and grateful to have you here and play with me today.
Yes, thank you. It's so great to be here. And I absolutely love this whole concept and what you stand for in terms of leadership and really redefining what that word is for people. I think it's overused nowadays, and sometimes I think it loses its meaning and its sense of what really it is at the core. So super excited to chat about what that is.
And I love that you went there right away. So honestly, let's just dig in right there when we talk about leadership.
Okay.
It has become one of those words like a business buzzword bingo, right? And it becomes this thing that people throw around, and there's a lot of expectation and way, especially in the corporate space where you and I spent a lot of time. There is this definition around what leadership looks like versus what's really needed from leaders. And so I'm curious, as you've gone through your journey, how have you redefined leadership? What's shown up for you, and how has that changed over the course of where you started your career and where you are now?
I've had a major transformative shift in my essence of leadership. And it started when I went on a little bit of a transformative journey myself and did a lot of inner work. And I was in a program where I started to realize that although I had always sort of been seen as a leader, I most of my life, people go, "You're a natural leader." At the time, what I learned about myself was I was used to leading from the front of the room. And in that program, I really had this like awakening of the fact that how to lead from the back of the room, if you will, or from the center of the room, but just being in the room and learning that leadership is not only about the person on the stage with the microphone. A huge shift for me to recognize that, having always been the person at the front of the room with the microphone, and going, what does actually leadership mean when we go inside and we start to realize it's really more about who we are and how we show up. So there was a huge shift there.
Yeah. And it's so powerful. And again, you can, for those of you that have been listening to the show and you know some of the work that I do, it's all around redefining that space around leadership being a choice, right? And it's that space to know that it's how you choose to show up, which is what Lisa's talking about, how you choose to serve and how you take personal responsibility. And I think there's so much to start to peel back when we think about the fact that it's not about leaders always needing to be in front, leaders always needing to be the person that's, quote, taking charge, that sometimes leadership is in terms of how you choose to participate in what's going on around you, how you choose to engage. And, you know, it's that idea of, and Lisa, I'd be really curious about this because I know you do a lot of work with other people as well. Mm-hmm. It's always interesting to me because I get people that'll ask, so Candy, are you a life coach or a business coach? And my response is always yes. And they're like, well, which is it? And I'm like, doesn't matter. And they're like, but no, which are you? And I said, whichever way you want to come at this, it's always going to start with you. And so as you've done your own inner work, how do you start to translate that and communicate that to others, that when they really want to step into that place of power and that space of leadership, that no matter how you approach it, no matter if you come in the front door, back door, side door, windows, whatever, it always starts from the same place. How do you address that? And what are some of the things that you've seen show up in that space?
Well, one of the first things I always say to people is that you're not 5 or 6 different people. You're one person. And so that I agree with you in terms of, and that's why I kind of say career and lifestyle strategist. I don't even say coach, I say strategist.
Right.
But I really have to kind of throw both words in for people to sort of get it. But for me, I always say to people, you're one person. So we try to compartmentalize our lives, and definitely in corporate, you heard, how many times did you hear the expression work-life balance? Right. But as if they're two totally different things. Like work is part of your life, right? It's not there's work and then there's life. It's like, until you recognize that there's one life, and yes, you know, how you get paid and make your living is a big chunk of that perhaps. But I really like to utilize people's lives as a way to develop leadership. And so like you, it doesn't matter if it's something specific about work that you want to use as your place to play and become a greater leader, great. And sometimes you can use a different piece of your life and practice and play on leadership skills and qualities in that space. And guess what? Because you're one person, they just spill over into everything else. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really big on the idea that we look at the whole life and we say, where do we want to play? Yeah. And I know that it has a benefit everywhere.
Well, and you and I are so in sync on that on so many levels. And it's one of the reasons we do have these amazing conversations. And every time we get together, we're just buzzing around things, because it is that space of, there's a myth around life-work balance. There's no such thing. You're not compartmentalized in terms of these different players. You are one person who at any given time needs to find out where your harmony is, where your center point is. And it's like that moving center that you're like, where do I need to be more focused and present? Because not everything's equal. When we say that balance, it always feels like it's got to be those scales that's like tipped one way or the other. And that's not how life happens around us. It's this moving target at any time. And how close can you be grounded in that center and harmonized to that? And so I love that you talk about one person, and you are one person and one life, right? And I think that's just really powerful. And I'm curious, because you've thrown it out there a couple times already. And as we talk about kind of redefining the space as leaders, there's some people that may have that, ooh, I just heard her say the word play. I don't understand how that fits in leadership. And so I want you to talk about, what does play look like as you are stepping into this bigger and more redefined space around what it means to be a leader? Where does play fit in?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that. And I love that you're using the words harmonizing, grounded, rather than balance. You know, work-life balance. It's like, okay, forget about it. It feels like it needs to always be like on even keel. And You're right. We're not always on even keel. And instead of fighting that, I say, let's play with it. And so my word of play, I mean play in several different ways. And so sometimes people hear play and they literally think that's, you know, you're outside with a ball with your dog and you're playing, for example, which is part of it. But play for me is a spirit. It's a way of being. It's a way of showing up. And I think it's so powerful that we can use play, literally and figuratively, to move ourselves forward. I mean, I just did a talk called Play Your Way to Greatness. And I love that expression. It's my new expression I keep using, because I do believe that we take, first of all, a play attitude. So say you're a leader in a corporate environment, everything's so serious, right? Everything, you know, you need to be a better leader and everything needs to be strong and it's very serious and we can't laugh about it. And, you know, every time in corporate, when I would try to mix in some elements, some gamification, some play into it, my boss would always be like, well, we got to make sure we're working. And I said, you know, play can have a really good, strong purpose as well. And I know people will disagree with me on that, but you can play your way to new understanding and to new discovery. In fact, the National Institute of Play, I read something the other day that said, creative play allows us to transcend our current state of knowledge. I mean, how beautiful is this? That creative play allows us to transcend our current state. So if we are trying to lead an organization, we're trying to lead ourselves, we're trying to lead our families even, to be better, to be stronger, to have more fun, to have more connection, it's a different space we're going to. Absolutely. And so if we need to transcend where we are in order to go somewhere else, why not use play for that?
Yeah. And oh my gosh, there's so much in that I love. First of all, I love that there's an institute for play. That in itself just lights me up. Oh my goodness, is that ever needed? And I think about this frame that you're creating, this space around play to your greatness. And there is such a myth around play. I don't have time for play. And what people don't understand is it's that power of play that unlocks the creativity, that unlocks your imagination. And you think about when you were a child, right? And how audacious and how daring and how you stood in this place of where I've been going in Imagine If, right? It's really unlocking the possibilities of what's available to us instead of sitting ourselves in this space where, as I like to say, we adult too much. We need to stop adulting so much and be so rigid in these boxes and roles and responsibilities. And so it's interesting. And the fact that there's this idea of transcending from where we're at to a whole different space and state and opportunity for us to show up differently. I'm curious, as you've done this incredible transformative work and you've gone through your own transformations. I know even in the time that I've known you, I've watched some of the evolution that's been just awesome to see, right? And as you're doing these worldly travels and engaging in these different cultures and different mindsets and different things that are going on, what has been one of the biggest aha moments for you in your own moments of transforming or transcending from kind of that current state of coming out of that corporate mentality into this space where you've seen what play has really done and what it's opened up for you?
Yeah. For me, I am a continuing recovering perfectionist. I know you are too. Type A perfectionist. Everything has to be, cut and dry. Everything. I mean, they used to call me the Excel.
I said she was my soul sister, right?
Yeah. Right.
Control freaks are us. There is a club. I'm just saying.
Right. So I was that typical person who needed all the answers to things, and everything fit in a box. Like I literally was. Well, I won't say everything, but I was an Excel queen. I used to take a mess and I would throw it into a spreadsheet and it would all look pretty and we could, move forward. And as you know, as we step into an entrepreneurial space and there's so much ambiguity around us that you got to embrace, you got to love the mess and the crazy, right? You got to embrace the chaos or you suffer really quickly. So I would say one of the biggest ahas for me was learning to, and I will use the word play again, learning to play in the ambiguity, learning to play with the unknown. Because as much as I'm talking about play and we're laughing and having fun here, there's a lot of struggles and challenges to being a leader, whether you're a leader in the corporate world or you're a leader in the entrepreneurial space. There are some really tough moments, and when you step up on that stage, whether it's, whether it's a personal stage or a group stage, there, for people like us, that type A personality, it's like, I need to be perfect. I need to have all the answers. And the second I gave myself permission to play is like, this is you're just playing with this, Lisa. Like, you don't have to do this for the rest of your life. Yeah, it might get a little messy. You'll learn something. And then next time you'll play it a little differently. And it becomes this energy and this spirit of, what if this all was just a game? What if literally we were just doing this to see what showed up and what happens? And maybe we could take a little bit of, when you take away a little bit of the seriousness, you take away a little bit of the anxiety and the pressure, the need to be perfect, the need to have all the answers. Because at the end of the day, we really know if we stop and think about it, we're never going to be perfect and we're never going to have all the answers. So we're going to fight the mess, or you're going to play in it?
Right. And, that goes back to that whole space around stop adulting, because the stress and anxiety and fear are not something we know as children. We're taught those behaviors as we are given roles and responsibilities and some of that serious stuff,
expectation.
Right. And all that gets laid on us. And what's really interesting around, I love this idea around loving the mess, right? And I know as a recovering control freak myself, seriously, there is a club like, Control Freaks Anonymous. 13 steps to recovering as a former perfectionist. It starts with the awareness like anything else, but it's that space of one of the biggest ahas is somebody who's always crossed the T's, dotted the I's, shown up a certain way to say, wow, I can't control it. I don't have control over a lot of different things. How am I going to enjoy the ride? And I think the idea, and it's interesting because I've worked with a lot of clients with the same thing, making a game of it. How do you make a game of some of the stuff that feels tough, some of the stuff that feels icky? And it's that permission to play that you're talking about, and that space around really embracing the ambiguity. There is so many, and I used to be such a black and white person. It was this or this, and the engineer in me kicks in sometimes, right? And now there's this place to dance in the gray that's so delicious. And when you actually allow it to just show up and be that space of play, and I would guess inside that play, because one of the things that I think is also challenging, especially for people that have been adulting too long and been too serious, is there's a big space of vulnerability in play. Play leaves you wide open. Play, at least for me, that's how I interpret it. Play is a space where you could be judged, you could be criticized, because you talk about those decisions, those tough moments as a leader. Everyone has the ability to be a leader. Not everyone makes that choice, because there's a personal responsibility that goes with that. And there's a space of stepping into courage and vulnerability that most people do the backpedal, cop out, are like, yeah, that's not really mine. I wasn't born a leader, so therefore I'm not the leader. It's not on me. And people don't want to step forward in that space. I think that's a lot of why we're seeing things happening globally, economically, politically, is this space of not embracing that responsibility to stand in your own vulnerability. And so I'd love to know your perspective around how vulnerability fits in the space of play that you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. You said so many things in there I could talk about, and I love this idea. I always say I play in the gray, and I like it that way.
Playing in the gray. It's awesome.
So when I am being vulnerable, I was like, I don't know, I'm just figuring this out. But no, there is a vulnerable place there. And I also think that this goes back to what we started talking about right at the beginning, of the idea that leadership is not just how we lead others, but how we lead ourselves. So you mentioned that I am the chairman of the board of a nonprofit organization called All It Takes. And we do leadership and empowerment training for youth. And what I want to bring this up is because our leadership definition is actually different than what typical people typically the dictionaries, I guess, say what leadership is. And we say it's the accountability, responsibility to lead oneself and others to create positive outcomes. I might have messed it up a little bit, but the idea that we have to lead ourselves first. And so this is where the vulnerability piece comes in, because what we say is even people that don't consider themselves leaders or technically say they want to be leaders, we believe that at the very minimum, we all are influencers. And so this is where leading from the back of the room sort of steps into place. And so we teach this to youth, and we're actually teaching adults to teach youth, which means we're teaching adults this idea that you are going to influence people regardless. So even when I'm sitting in a room, so for example, someone's at the front of the room talking and I'm sitting in the room, and am I fully engaged and present?
Right.
Am I open and listening to what they have to say, whether or not I like it? But am I giving them my attention? Am I being a leader in that way? Or am I on, my iPhone and I'm texting? I'm like, I'm not really interested in that, so I'm doing this.
Right.
Now the person beside me who was really interested, is that bit of their attention's being pulled because this is going on over here. And it's like, so you're still influencing other people, whether or not you're leading from that space. And so you asked me about vulnerability, and I think the vulnerability comes from a place of being able to stand and own that space of what you actually believe in and your values, and embody it, even when you may be surrounded by other people who are not embodying something that's very popular. It's like it's 5 people at the table maybe on their iPhones, and maybe I want to check my iPhone too, But what I remember is when I'm on the stage, I know you can tell who's checking iPhones, and it feels really bad when you're the speaker, when people aren't engaged. And so it's like, can I be a leader and stay in that? I mean, I'm using a very specific example, but hopefully, it's like, can I be vulnerable and just say, you know what, I just want to try to, show up exactly who I want to be. It's not always easy.
But it's a powerful example. And I think sometimes it makes it easier to really understand it when we don't think about the effect of our energy and the effect of our presence. Because you're right, we all have the ability to influence. There's somebody watching us all the time, whether you're a parent or not. There's people that want to emulate you. There's people that are just naturally drawn to you. There are reasons why people can't explain where they're like, I like that person. I don't know why. Because there's just energetically something that draws us to different people. And we all have influence in that space. And so I love that you really talk about the power of how we all have that influence. That's sort of an internal space that, whether you want to say that you choose to lead in that or not, we have something we create just by our presence. And there's activities that we do a lot of times that, are nonverbal activities that just demonstrate, are you bringing aggressive energy? Are you bringing passive energy? Are you bringing kind of the deer in the headlights, all that whole fight, flight, freeze kind of stuff? But you can actually just feel and be influenced by how people show up in a room. If they're angry, if they're sad, if they're withdrawn, and so that, I think that illustrates a really good point, because we forget about that sometimes. Oh, that's a speaker. There's a room of 500. I can't possibly be a person that would be distracting that or causing a shift in terms of how other people could experience that, when you actually are. And so what I'd love to play on a little bit or understand is, so the embodiment of who we are and our core values that you talk about, and that's that vulnerability piece, right? Being wide open to stand in a place to say, this is my core values. This is who I am, irregardless. That being said, what happens when you are the only one? What happens when that voice of fear creeps in and says, you're being judged, you're being criticized, oh my God, you're ostracizing yourself, they're going to hate you, they're going to fight you, they're going to this. What do you do when all that starts to cave in and you are the lone wolf? Recognizing, because you take that challenge to say, I want to take the responsibility and I want to stand in that power of influence. How do you address that? How do you handle that? Because it shows up, right? We all have those moments of,
yeah. I call Candy Barone. Yeah. There's truth to that.
I didn't know you were to say that, but
no, call Candy. Seriously. No, and I actually, there's truth to that little joke that I'm saying there, is because this is what we do, right? The reason you and I know each other is because we know, and we have felt that vulnerability. When I left corporate and people just assumed I was going to jump into another corporate job, and then I start hopping on videos at Facebook sharing like my crazy journeys and my struggles with it, and it feels very naked, feels very vulnerable, and it feels very lonely. And then I'd be talking to people that I used to work with, and I could tell they just didn't get it.
Right.
And they're like, when are you going back to get a real job? They would say this to me. And it became very lonely, and it was very hard, and it could be very sad, and I could have sat and suffered in it. And I would say that there were times that I did. And then when I was more active and said, I get to find people to surround myself with, right? The Jim Rohn quote that says you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. I say just surround yourself with more people and more often that are in that space and can at least understand it. And so maybe they're not take it all, maybe I call you and I'm like, I'm feeling really vulnerable and I'm feeling really, you may not be able to take it all away, but I know you understand it and you've been there too. And I know in that space, you're more apt to lift me up and support me and going through that, right? Not taking it away from me, because we numb things a lot with people. Oh, now. Well,
and it's interesting because you and I just had that opportunity for that kind of aha, didn't we? I mean, for those of you that don't know, Lisa and I just came off of this incredible space where there's global thought leaders coming to the table and we're challenging each other in this space. And we had a breakout mastermind session that this very topic came up. And it was about, are we standing in a space to reach out and have the helpline and have the friend, call the friend, I need a friend to sit, or are we trying to go at it alone? And it was a big aha around, because Lisa and I, for a while, we were checking in all the time, and then life starts moving and happening. And all of a sudden we were like, holy cow, we haven't checked in enough lately. I can't believe I thought I had to do this alone when all I had to do was pick up the phone or get on a Zoom or do something to say, I'm drowning right now. I need a lifeline. I need a shoulder. I need a voice. I need to just vent. I don't even need anyone to fix it. I just need a safe space to just blow it out so that I can shake it off and regroup and reset and refocus where I want to be putting my energy in. You know, it's really easy. I think there's so many people that watch things that we do and they're like, oh, they got it all figured out. Oh, they must be rock stars and powerhouses. And yes, I will own that. I will say, yes, we are in our own right. And so are you. And the only way that we continue to stand in that greatness, that play your way to greatness, is to really step into that vulnerability and make sure you're reaching out to people when things aren't going well. When it's that space of, I feel like I'm an awkward 16-year-old, which by the way, I'll be 45 in July. And I was just having this conversation. I'm like, I don't understand sometimes when people are like, you're a powerhouse. And my response is, really, I'm an awkward 16-year-old that has no freaking clue what I'm doing. I just keep putting it in front of the other, because there are times that it blows my mind on the technical age I am. Because internally, it's like that duck, right? That's very calm on the surface.
And the feet are like,
yeah, exactly. And I feel like I've mastered I can sit like a duck in water, but man, I haven't quite learned how to tread. And so I'm fighting versus
who to show your feet. Right. Yeah, or who to show your feet to, because I think this is the thing is that, you know, this is the true vulnerability is that, and this is strategic. Let's call it strategic vulnerability as well.
I like that. I'm going to steal that.
Strategic vulnerability. And this is where I go with this, because when my feet are going like that and I don't have it all together and I'm afraid to call really anybody, is to remember to be strategic about it. Because again, I call Candy and what do I get? I get understanding. She's not trying to fix it for me. It's like, yep, we're all here. Guess what? It's totally normal. You're going through it. Embrace it. Don't suffer from it. Just embrace it. You'll get through it. Tomorrow will be a different, it's a different. Now, there's other people that I could call that I know who love me and care about me, who will want to take that away, or, maybe you should come home, or maybe what about trying, going to get another job, or maybe, it's like, all of these things that we don't really want to go in that space, right? Because this entrepreneurial world for us is a bit messy, but, finding people that can just be there to support us and not saying, so it's strategic, and it's a bit tricky to figure this out at first, right? Because it's like, there's good friends and family that love you, but you also know sometimes when you share with them, their support just isn't quite what
and it's that space. I love your term strategic vulnerability, and by the way, I'm going to shamelessly steal that. And
yes, please do.
What we do, by the way, we just share as things show up, because it is that space of, you're not going to be wide open and vulnerable with everyone. And it's not because people don't love you. It's because some of your well-intentioned people are so in a space that they're swimming in their own fear and insecurity and vulnerability that they can't see beyond that. Because Lisa's right when she talked about before, we are the sum effect of the 5 people we surround ourselves with at any given point. And when you think about, and one of the things that I challenge people around a lot of times when they're identifying their who, whether it's clients or it's people that are supporting them, it's, do you have all yes people in your life? Or do you have all people that are always cautioning you? Because if that's your circle, it might be time to do a little housekeeping on who you want to bring into the inner part of that, because you need people that are going to challenge you, call your BS, support you, love you, and create a safe space where you don't need to do anything but have a sounding board. And so you need to have people that know the difference about when they can offer okay, Lisa, I'm going to call your BS, or okay, Candy, you're way off base, or hey, I got your back, just spew. And there's nothing that you have to fix. There's nothing you have to do. Just go wherever you need to go, and I'm here for you. And there is a true space to balance that out, right? To find that harmony in that space as well.
Yeah, and in my book, I call them negative Nellies, but I also sort of talk about the idea of asking yourself if someone's being negative or being contradictory to what you're saying, is to just stop and think about a couple things. First of all, do they care about you and your progress is the first thing. But then second of all is to look at, is there some merit to what they're saying? Isn't it something you need to check out? And if it's not, if you don't see that, then is it maybe just their own thing? Exactly what you were saying is, are they in their own stuff, right? Because when we start going out there, and I talk about my sister, when I decided to leave my corporate job. My sister loves me. She supports me. She's my yes person usually for everything. And when I told her that I was leaving corporate, I did not expect her reaction. Her reaction was all like, ugh, you know. And it wasn't until after I thought, and she didn't take long to turn around and support me, but it wasn't until after I realized that that's because that's her reaction. Her idea of me leaving this like stable income and all of these benefits and everything I had, that petrified her because her thought of it, her doing that was petrifying.
Right.
So it took her a few beats, if you will. Let's call them beats. I don't remember how long.
They are beats. Sometimes there's a lot of beats.
It takes a couple of beats. So take a few beats to really get on board and go, you know what, this is it. I know you're going to rock it. But it's just like the idea at first was like, ugh, you know, so that's okay too. I just think it's, again, that strategic vulnerability is like, especially when you know that you're really, really vulnerable to the point where it's like someone says boo and you're going to crumble.
Yeah.
Like make sure you're sharing that with, you know, people that you know will be there to catch you.
Yeah, and it's okay for those of you that are maybe struggling with this concept of being strategically vulnerable. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, I need help. It's okay to say, I'm scared. It doesn't change whether or not you're a powerhouse. Some of the most powerful, influential people will say and admit that they don't know and that they're scared. There's incredible power in really being truthful with yourself and the people that you're enlisting to be that support for you. There is power in being very open and honest. And I love, Marie Nemeth talks about in her book, The Energy of Money, she talks a lot about there's a difference between being honest and being truthful. And honest, we can be honest. We can say things that are, you know, absolute facts and truths and things that we believe in, versus being very truthful, which means you're willing to look in the mirror and say, I'm going to call this what it is. Because there's even people when they stand in and they think they're being vulnerable, they'll finally start to express some of those emotions or some of those things that might be surfacing. And they'll say, I'm angry, I'm pissed off, when actually the real emotion is I'm scared, I'm lost, I feel like somebody just attacked me, I feel like I'm being criticized, I feel like I'm going to be abandoned. But that's too vulnerable. And when somebody says, oh, I'm pissed, people are like, yeah, I've got your back, I'm there. And you get that enlistment of energy. And so there is something about that truth telling inside that space that you do have to ask those questions. Is it someone I know, like, trust, respect? Is there any truth to what they're pushing back and projecting back at me? And what's my truth and what's theirs? And how do I distinguish and create my choices as a result of that? And so I think that idea of being strategically vulnerable is incredibly powerful. I mean, what an incredible frame to go out there. And so I'm curious, Lisa, and by the way, we are going to have you back because we are getting close on our time, which it goes so fast, right? I want to talk about what's on the horizon for you. We're playing a bigger game. We talk about this new space of leadership and playing your way to greatness and really being strategically vulnerable. So as you start to dance in that space of imaginative for yourself, in the space of possibilities, right? What's on the horizon for you? What are you starting to envision? What's next?
Yeah, for me, it's really envisioning how I'm going to work with having people play their way to greatness. It has only been this past year that I really stepped into this concept of play, even though it's been there all along. I mean, back in the corporate days when they wanted me to kill people with PowerPoint slides, death by PowerPoint. I was always bringing in a bit of play, but I seemed to always be battling this idea that we couldn't get something really deep and meaningful out of it, that play is too frivolous. And so I see people stepping into this and having, create this space for people. I call it adventurous transformational experiences, because when you can take someone, and this is what I'm doing. This is what I envision is me taking people climbing a mountain. Up the mountain we go when people are physically out of their comfort zone, and we can start playing with different emotions. We start playing with different scenarios, and we start really diving deep. That's when the deep stuff starts to come up. And so we can play with it, and it can be deep. And I don't say play, we're always laughing and joking. Sometimes we're crying and screaming. But
true story.
True story. Totally true story. But I see people actually starting to really embrace this idea more. And, where we have to be we're really vulnerable is what I see is that you don't have to practice in a really, really, really scary place. You know, if you're trying, you know, I think when we are practicing being more present and being more vulnerable and sharing our truth, that doesn't have to be on a world stage, right? You don't always have to be on Facebook Live sharing that experience. You can play with it in smaller areas. And I give you a really specific example. I was trying to play with me needing to always know the next step. I was struggling with the fact that I didn't know what the next step was going to be. And I wanted to just like sink into what would it feel like if I just trusted that the next step would come. I went to a salsa dance class. Because if anybody has done Latin dancing, it's like the woman is literally just like, okay, trust that your partner's going to be it's sort of like, okay, what does it feel like when I clearly have no idea what the next step is, and could I have fun with that? Mm-hmm. Right? So it's like I needed to do that in another area of my life, but I can play with it in a different area just to get my body used to it. And so travel does that for us as well. It's like literally I said in the fall, you know, I went to Europe. I was feeling a little too comfortable in my life. I said, I need to step outside of my comfort zone. And I was almost surprised when I got to Germany and Iceland and places like Holland where I didn't understand the language at all. Right. That I was uncomfortable. But it's like I chose to be uncomfortable so that I could go, I lived through it, right? It's okay.
Well, that's where the biggest growth happens, right? It's the minute we step outside of what is so comfortable to us. Growth happens when it's those big moments that are, you know, I'm a big one that says, if it doesn't scare you, it's not big enough to grow you. It's one of those spaces that, you know, and so I love that you embody that, you walk that path. I mean, you really are leading a movement around creating these transformational experiences through adventure and play, and through really tapping into something that's a much deeper experience within ourselves. And I know there's people that even hearing the phrase, and I know I get super excited because I'm an outdoors person like you are, and I hear about some of these adventurous transformational experiences, right? And I think about, what does that really mean? There's people that are getting excited going, ooh, I want to know more. I want to know how I can play with Lisa and learn how to play my way to greatness. And so what is the best way that our listeners can get a hold of you? How can they reach out and learn more about the work that you're doing?
Yeah, the best way is to connect with me through my through my website, which is lisadad.com, and it's DADD. There's two
DADD, yes.
DADD through the website, and those adventurous retreats are not posted yet, but stay tuned because they will be, and you'll be hearing more and more about it. Providing those big opportunities. And as my work evolves, there's lots of opportunities to play with it a little bit, so people don't have to commit to climb a mountain with me, because I know people are like, oh my gosh, that scares the crap out of me. Yeah. Although you're the perfect person to go if it does.
Oh, I know. That's right. So when you're ready to go jump off a mountain, let me know. I'm coming.
Right. But I do smaller little challenges too. I know you're fond of challenges. And so I am all about giving people an opportunity to stretch themselves in their own life.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, having that space where you can play in smaller challenges and the bigger. I mean, I ever since I got Peyton, my dog, I haven't done the class 5 whitewater rafting or the hanging off the side of the mountain, scaling it because I'm rock climbing. Used to be my kind of get out of my comfort zone. There's something to be said for that. There's just that pushing past wherever you are, from a physical limitation, a mental limitation, emotional, spiritual limitation. And Lisa is really just a fabulous expert to help shift some of those things. So I highly encourage and invite that you check out what she's doing. Follow her on social media. Go out, check out her website. And as we're bringing things to a close, Lisa, first of all, what a great conversation. I love dancing with you. I love playing with you. I have since the first day we've met. I mean, the minute Lisa and I met, there was just this like, but I'm curious, as everything, because we've dug into a lot of stuff over our short time. What's one thing you'd like to leave this audience with, or something that you'd like for them to marinate and kind of play with as they go about the rest of their day and re-enter into their life after a little time together?
Yeah, a couple things I will say. First of all, you do not need anybody else's permission to play. Woo! Little kids don't ask permission to play. They just start playing, right? Like, you know, when it's my cousin's son, you know, he wants to be Captain America. He doesn't ask if he can be Captain America. He just starts being Captain America. You know, he grabs a fry pan.
Yep.
You know, so you don't need permission. You don't need permission. is first one. And the second one is you can start being what you want to be right now in some way. Doesn't have to be a big way, but it can be in a small way. And that's the playing part, right? So anybody, all those people out there say, one day I'm going to write a book. Okay, great. Write a sentence a day, just a fun sentence, start with the alphabet and write something about A for today and B for tomorrow, whatever. I mean, it can be so small that just lets you play in the space that you want to be in. You don't need permission, and it doesn't need to be big. So you can actually use your own life. And if you need some of those creative ideas on how to use your life, that's where I come in. And you can contact me through my website, and I love doing that. That's the strategic part. I love playing with ideas for people. Yeah.
And I mean, that's so powerful. It's really that simple. I mean, people keep waiting till something's going to show up in their life, or waiting until they get permission, or waiting for something, instead of realizing that no one can give you permission other than yourself. And it's everything that we talk about, right? It's truly standing in a space to say yes to yourself. And when you get clear about this is who I am and this is who I'm becoming, and start to embody that, as Lisa's talking about, all it takes is you putting yourself in a place to start playing with that imaginative, start playing with what that feels like to be that person you want to become, or to open up that space that you want to create, or create that passion in business, or whatever it might be. It's just taking whatever step you have available to you right now, because all the doors open up and access from there. And so I think what a powerful message to leave, that no one needs to, you don't need permission from anyone, and you can start right now playing in that space that lights you up so much. And so it is with deep gratitude, absolutely just so honored to have you here, Lisa. I love you to the moon, stars, back, beyond. Yes, big, huge heart-to-heart hugs. I'm squeezing you, even though we're not near each other. Just love you with my whole heart, whole soul, and thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it was so always fun to play with you, Candy. So thanks for having me.
Always. And for the rest of you, truly, this is your opportunity to say yes to yourself. Destroy the noise, and it's the stories and the mindset and the chatter in between your two ears. Let go of what you think you're supposed to be, and stand in a place of who you really desire to be, and play. And know that leadership is a choice. It's a choice in how you choose to show up, how you choose to serve others, and how you choose to take that personal responsibility. So I hope you will choose to be the leader you were destined to be. We will catch up with you next time. Please subscribe so that you do not miss any of these amazing conversations. And again, my heartfelt gratitude to my dear friend Lisa Dad for joining us today. I will see you all next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.